Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week. There have been an awful lot of them. We are supposed to be in the autumn now of our plankery, and in fact it's so hot outside that there's going to be some weather planks in there perhaps today as well. I'm delighted to say today I'm joined by two, I would say, stalwarts of Plank of the Week who've been here since almost the very beginning. Belinda former MEP, of course, for the Brexit Party. Will Geddes, international man of mystery. Why don't you kick us off, Will, with your first plank?
Oh my goodness, so I've got three to choose from, and who better to start with, Mike and Belinda, than the lovely Sadiq Khan?
Oh yes, my favourite mayor.
Who's a regular, contender.
He really is, isn't he? I mean, I tell you what, I could not get into work this morning. I almost missed doing the show because the traffic is so bad. People have started going back to work, and it was pretty bad before. But if anything goes wrong now, and I think something went wrong, one of the tunnels got shut, it was literally just at a standstill. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's standard drills, basically, for London.
It is normal. Ridiculous,
and,
isn't it?
And especially as everybody should have been anticipating, with all the kids going back to school and everybody going back to work. However, that leads nudges very gently towards one of my nominations for this week, which I won't go to yet. But the thing that really gripped me was the whole issue with Sadiq Khan and his general wokeness, which he always prevails to try and promote, is the issue of assigning and expediting, albeit for a very worthy cause, the housing for Afghani refugees, who I believe definitely need to be housed, definitely need to be looked after. But again, veterans, homeless veterans especially, are being left at the bottom of the pile. And I'm just wondering, at what point is this government and Sadiq Khan going to say, hang on a second, we need to almost prioritise
first things first.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, because we keep hearing about how we have to prioritise these people coming from Afghanistan, and everybody agrees that they should be helped because they were helping us there, and that's fine. Except they've now expanded the kind of criteria, haven't they? So you're now able to come here, not just if you're somebody who helps out the armed forces, but if you want to come. As if, we're somehow the international rescue against people who get hurt by the Taliban. As much as it's a horrible thing, we can't help everybody.
When Dominic Raab was questioned about it, he said, oh, look, there's no reason why we can't help both the veterans and the Afghan refugees. The problem is they don't.
No,
I was reading a very sad Twitter tweet from a mum who had posted the suicide note of her son, 44, killed himself this week, Afghan veteran from the Afghan wars, and he wrote this desperately sad story about, I don't die today now, I died in 2009 in Helmand province, and there's just no hope for me. This was a few days ago. The government aren't taking care of our veterans, and to rub it in their faces, there has to be another way we can accommodate these worthy refugees in places that don't harm housing for poorer people, especially our veterans.
I mean, I hear that in certain boroughs of London, certainly in the East End of London, it's like a 9 to 20 years wait list to get a council flat. And I'm not saying that refugees shouldn't be housed and shouldn't be given opportunities, but we have those that have served for Queen and Country, who've done their time, who've come back and brought the ghosts of war back with them. And I don't want to put a bit of a downer on Plank of the Week, but I just think
but
to myself,
know an awful lot about that particular
I've got plenty of friends who've come back from Afghanistan who are in a really bad way, and some of them, for one reason or another, generally from mental health, have ended up homeless and on the streets. And Boris made some pledge of £5 million towards mental health for veterans the other day. That's not even a drop in the ocean. Let's look at the housing issues.
Shouldn't there be a charity as well that looks after these guys?
Well, there are numerous charities.
There are numerous charities, but there isn't one sort of overarching, like, say, for example, there was Save the Children or Oxfam. Shouldn't there be a proper armed forces charity?
Well, there was Johnny Mercer was doing his absolute utmost to try and do what he could. And I mean, I'm a champion of Johnny Mercer. I think Johnny Mercer, gets a lot of flack. But he tried so hard as the Veterans Minister to get things off the ground. And unfortunately, the government just didn't back him.
Well, also, he felt let down, didn't he? And that was why he resigned.
Yeah.
He was promised things which, then weren't delivered. And I think there's a big difference, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, an awful lot of government sort of misappropriation of all sorts of things. But there's some things that you can pretend that you're going to do and not do. But there are some things that you can't do that with. For example, airlifting people out of Afghanistan, shutting down, military bases before you've got the civilians out, promising veterans a house and then not giving them one. I mean, that's not just a mistaken political message. It's wrong.
No, we've got our priorities all wrong anyway. And also, we are a tiny patch of land, and our infrastructure has to house and support the people here. So we can keep being a sanctuary, because otherwise there will be conflicts in communities if new people arrive, again, no matter how worthy, who are suddenly at the top of the list, suddenly getting all the support, suddenly be in the papers complaining about how, you know, their hotel, this, that and the other isn't up to scratch, when we have got desperate people. And the veterans aren't. It should be from the top down anyway. We shouldn't have charities for veterans. It should be the government's duty to take care of each and every one when they come back from war for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's what they do in America. I mean, in America, you don't see very many homeless veterans. I know you see some probably, because some of them are suffering from mental health problems, as you say. But, you know, you don't get booed at and you don't get told not to wear a uniform when you go out in America. You know, in fact, you get a discount, or they'll take you to the front of the queue, or they'll say, well done, thank you for your service, that kind of thing. We don't seem to do that here.
No, we just don't seem to have a national pride for our armed forces. And people, it's all too easy. And unfortunately, I think it's endemic of society that we live in these days, and culture and wokeness and God knows what, that unfortunately our armed forces do not get thanked for what they've done. I mean, like you said, Mike, in the States, and I travel to the States a lot, you'll always hear people saying, thank you for your service. You know. It's just common parlance.
Right, exactly.
You
and they
just don't hear it here.
Bumper stickers and things like that. Because also the other thing is that if it wasn't for all of these illegal migrants coming in on the south coast, I'm sure people would be far more understanding and far more tolerant of having more Afghan refugees come to live in their communities. But because there's so many people coming illegally, you're kind of going, hey, enough already.
The Brits are such a compassionate, tolerant lot, with some of the most charitable people in the world, and we're being turned into resenting genuine refugees who I always want to, you know, keep safe and welcome here. People are resenting them now because of failures of government to integrate, failures of government to stop mass immigration, stop illegal immigration. There's nothing should stop our country from rejecting failed asylum seekers. Yet how many do we send back?
I know.
None.
Well, we haven't sent any back, have we?
No,
I mean,
exactly.
And the latest problem is Priti Patel promising not to now pay the French some money that she hasn't paid them, and that they never asked for. They're going, so the 54 million you told us last week you were giving us, now you're not giving it.
The French don't give a flying flamingo, if I could use John Berco's words, about the 54 million. We could be paying the French £1 billion. They still will keep sending the boats of men. They have 97,000 applicants for asylum this year already. They want to get rid.
Sure.
We couldn't pay them enough to stop them. They're eagerly finding ways they can probably escort more and more to England. Priti Patel is either naive or just trying to pay lip service
I don't know what she's
to
doing.
the papers.
No, it's PR.
The French aren't interested in money.
No.
We need our Navy ships out there, and we need to be returning all the boats now before this becomes more of a crisis.
And the RNLI has to stop bringing them in as well, because that's causing a lot of problems.
You know what? But I kind of get the RNLI position, because I mean they are fundamentally lifesavers, and if you've got people who are sort of capsizing or
but they're not,
sinking,
though, are they?
Yeah, but if they again,
you can say if
I'm really torn on that one. I have to say,
I'm not.
On that one.
Have you seen them getting off? Have you not seen them getting off? They get off and waving, checking the watch to see if they have to change the time zone.
Hang on, George. Let out a bit of air in the dinghy.
I mean, there's literally, it doesn't look like they've been on an arduous journey. I said today they might as well open up as Brittany ferries. These guys, they're bringing more people in than you can then come regularly on the car ferry.
I look at it this way: if David Williams can swim the channel, then it's not going to be that much of a challenge.
It can't be that bad.
But isn't it ironic that Barnier, the EU lovey, the Remainers king of everything that is woke, right and righteous, he is now running on a presidential campaign that is anti-immigration. The UK will have better luck with Barnier as president than we will with Macron. How funny is that after all this
hilarious.
time? But no, this is a human trafficking, people smuggling line of getting economic
organised crime.
migrants
It's a racket.
into the country illegally. They must all be sent back so we can offer sanctuary more to refugees.
Absolutely. Proper, reasonable, genuine refugees.
I think
who
legitimate
living in
processing.
Abingdon.
Absolutely, as long as they're going to come and help, and as long as they're going to contribute positively to the economy and to society and whatever, great. Why not?
And women and girls. You never see women and girls.
I mean, funny enough,
you don't see many, do you?
You don't see
men
many.
between the age of 18 and 25 from very patriarchal, conservative countries that don't often have a very good view of women. No thanks.
And they also don't talk much about the organised crimes contraband, which is also travelling on the dinghies with
them at some time.
Yeah, the French love those
it's now more profitable to smuggle people.
I mean, the French are helping the smugglers.
It's now more profitable to smuggle these people than it is to smuggle cocaine. I mean, it's literally that much. It's worth that much to them.
But it's funny how a bit of that might be in the boat as well.
We're going to arrest you, and they're going, okay, we already run a massive organised crime racket that makes us about £10 million a week. we're not going to be that worried if you're threatening to arrest us.
No, exactly.
Really?
Yeah, we need to be tough with the French.
I think we do. Absolutely do. I'm all for that.
It.
Who's your first plank?
My first plank of the week, very hard to choose from as always, is Sheffield City Trust.
Oh, yes.
They have cancelled Roy Chubby Brown.
Yeah.
Now, he is a comedian in his 70s. He's been going for 45 years. He has been touring and performing in Sheffield for 45 years.
He was big in the 80s,
Big in the 80s.
He was himself old working men's club type.
Yeah, exactly. Bernard Manning.
Yeah. You know, not all his humour is my cup of tea, but I do laugh at him occasionally. He has been cancelled just because all of a sudden Sheffield's decided he's not inclusive, his material isn't diverse. I don't know why I have to do it in an American accent. I don't want to do it in a northern accent because it's not fair on the northerners.
You did a Sheffield accent.
Yes,
it doesn't sound any good.
So Roy Chubby Brown, who's, you know, a basic kind of guy, he's like, all I do is joke about everyday life experiences. Oh no, the woke Gestapo
you can't have that.
is out and they have forbidden, they've even returned
because there's a lot of things,
tickets.
you know, there's a lot, that's the thing, he sold the place out,
He sold it.
Yeah.
Because people want to come and see him.
Do they own the venue or something? I suppose they must have.
Oh, they must have some.
There'll be some sort of licensing
There'll be a licensing
issue.
thing, won't there?
They just withdraw the license.
But, you know, it used to be discussed at Tunbridge Wells, a few people writing and complaining. Now everyone has a platform, or, you know, the Twitterati jump and hound and
well, you can imagine how it goes, right? Somebody in Sheffield City Trust will have come in one day and gone,
did you say that about women?
Did you see that horrible man has been booked to play
I don't
a
get
theatre?
that. I mean, if you don't like him, then go.
I mean, if you're paying to see a comedian,
right?
Or if he's on the telly, change channel.
No, but
you know.
babies need to be spoon-fed what not to see in case it upsets
really?
their fragile
What, in case
little
they
ears.
spend 20 quid on the ticket and
but
end
they
up
bought
in...
the bleeding ticket, so surely they know what to expect. You're not going to go and see Roy Chubby Brown by accident, are you? And go, oh, I thought I was going to see a Stephen Fry lecture about, you know, how great climate change wallies are from Extinction Rebellion.
Humour is supposed to offend. I want humour to offend so badly. I want it to mock me and make a joke about all the ridiculous things I do. I love blonde jokes. Bring them on. The funnier, the better, right?
Exactly.
These people who are protecting minority groups and women, fragile little female women, from horrible jokes, they're not speaking for us.
No.
They've sat round a table and gone, how can we look really superior and righteous today? We'll cancel these comedians. The BBC are even now putting guidance notes in front of old 90s comedies like Gimme, 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 one of my favourites.
Oh, really?
You know, be warned, viewers, there might be some slightly offensive jokes. Jokes are offensive. Who wants to go to a woke comedy?
I saw an old episode of Porridge the other day, which came on, and I was just kind of flicking around, and it was very funny. But I was just partly laughing as well at some of the stuff that was being said, which you could just never get away with now. But just on a basic level, there was something brilliant about it because it was unexpected, and it was, you know, there was a scene where Fletcher's sitting on a train, they're taking him off to prison, and the Scottish guy, you know, who's the prison warder,
Mackay.
Mackay, that's right. He's sitting there and he's giving him a hard time. He says, "I'm refusing to speak to you because you're a criminal," blah blah blah. And then he goes, "Do you fancy a game of I Spy?" And he goes, I Spy with my little eye, something beginning with C. Just brilliant. And you don't have to say it, it's just funny.
It's funny.
And just, I mean...
But why? But there's something more insidious behind this. I think that they're kind of censoring by a council.
Yeah, and also
there's someone like Roy Chubby.
Yeah,
you know, you either buy a ticket or you don't buy a ticket. And he would have paid money for the venue.
Yeah. If I was him, I'd sue them.
I would.
Try and test it out in a court of law.
He was interviewed afterwards and he said, I don't know what's happened. I just make light of things. And surely now, more than ever in this crazy world, people need to laugh.
Yeah.
And look at what the Taliban did to that comedian, that man who had been making locals laugh, teasing about the Taliban. And they dragged him off to execution. And he was still laughing and making fun of them. Humour gets people through the worst atrocities and difficult times in life. And the miserable, bottom-feeding, fun-gobbling beastards are destroying and cancelling things that make people laugh. It's like in some puritanical Cromwellian cancelled Christmas kind of thing.
Well, we had a couple of weeks ago on this show the Globe Theatre, because they put out a message of apology and of advice for people going to see Romeo and Juliet, because it contains some serious themes.
Oh, what, like suicide?
Like suicide. But also, one of the reasons it was more dramatic than it would otherwise have been as the original version was because somebody had taken it to a new level and imagine the gall to rewrite Shakespeare, because it wasn't that good, right? So I thought I'd rewrite it, bring it up to date. So they made it even more sort of bloody and more suicidal and more drug use and all this. But even so, they were like, here's a number for the Samaritans if you've been upset.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you
Boy,
know.
we are creating monsters, or at least the woke
I feel really sorry for the next generation. I really do.
Well, fortunately, my kids get plenty of instruction at the home level as to what's funny and what isn't. And they can say what they want to me. I mean, if they don't like what I'm saying and they want to have a go at me, they're very welcome to do so.
But no wonder there's mental health issues in the young if they keep being told words are weapons of violence.
Yeah.
You are being treated as someone being attacked if someone says something offensive.
See, I remember Sticks and Stones.
Sticks and Stones, mate. But that's what we need to stop, throughout the country. So sorry, Roy Chubby Brown, but rock
Sheffield, I think,
Well, let's hope somebody with a bit of cojones decides to hire Roy Chubby Brown and put the show on.
Yeah.
Well, there's one here.
Yeah, there's one. I was born in Sheffield.
Get him on here.
Take me back to my birth home, and
there
I will
you go.
sort it right
you
out.
know more about Sheffield than most people. You're probably their greatest export, actually,
do you think? Oh, well,
I
thank
think
you.
so.
That's very much.
Champion. Well, speaking of men with cojones, I'm going to nominate Matt Hancock, who hasn't been on for a while, ever since his rather embarrassing disappearing act from the cabinet after his canoodling with Ms. Cola D'Angelo, as I like to call her, who sounds like somebody from The Sopranos. I say it every time. Cola D'Angelo. Anyway, this guy, right, has got so little self-awareness that he keeps appearing in places with her, right? And his wife, listen, we've all been through difficult, situations regarding marriage. And certainly you and I have, anyway. I don't know about you.
So far, so good.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, he's a public figure. And he's kind of rubbing his wife's nose in it. He started a Just Giving page because he's running the marathon, apparently. And everyone who gave money was just putting down these really, really horrible comments about him and what a horrible, absolutely ghastly character he was. One of them purported to be his ex-wife, and said basically that he was just a slime ball and that she would never ever take him back. She couldn't believe how he was behaving, blah, blah, blah. So he's had to now make every single donation anonymous so that they're not allowed to actually name themselves. Because people were just saying things like, you're a complete a-hole, there was one. She's at breaking point over what you've done. Sarah Vine, somebody signed in as Sarah Vine and said, how's your throbbing ego? I mean, just very, very funny. But worse than that, and which makes him absolute plank of the week for me, and I don't know whether he'll win it in the end, is he's taken old Carla D'Angelo off to Switzerland on holiday. Now, there are many nice things about Switzerland, but it's not a place I would take anyone on holiday.
Not romantic.
Really. It's not very romantic. Really. Worse than that, though, is that he's staying in a hotel that costs £87 a night.
What?
I mean...
Is that a Formula One?
Well, I presume it's the Swiss equivalent of the Travelodge.
Yeah, exactly.
How the mighty
But I mean, isn't that embarrassing?
£87. Why isn't she like
87 quid? Well, I mean, I don't know. Because she was married to a millionaire, right? She was married to the guy that ran Oliver Bonus.
Yeah.
And she's now waking up in the morning with a bloke who used to have quite a good job, but now doesn't.
With a tea
in a Premier Inn. Do you want something from the Goblin Teas made or not? It's just horrendous. There's a bloke over there with Alpenhorn. This is not what I had in mind, really.
Yeah.
Oh, it's karma.
And you got a nice view of the car park as well.
Nice view of the car park. Also, talking of tickets being sold, he's supposed to be making some kind of political comeback.
Oh, no.
And so apparently he's offered himself up as a speaker at some event or other, somewhere up in the wilds of Suffolk, where he's an MP. And they've only sold 70 tickets in a place that holds 300.
That's really funny. But also, he's not the most charismatic guy to start with. It's not like he fell that far past personality-wise. It's like, come back from what?
But he's clearly got no end of sort of confidence in himself.
No, I know.
You know what?
Because he showed up, did he not show up in Newquay as well? Surfing with a surfboard. And some women actually find him attractive, which I find extraordinary.
I don't get it at all. It's like a damp squib of wet nappy with a tie and with
the Just Giving thing. That reminds me of that great episode on In the Thick of It, where I can't remember which politician it is, but they set up a blog page for him, and literally everybody's just trolling him on it. and he goes, the worst thing about Google is you put your name in and you just open a door to a room full of people that just think you're SH12.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
I wouldn't mind, but the way he left his wife and kids, I thought was so brutal, so selfish, that actually he deserves a bit of trouble.
And I think he does, because I think, as I say, everybody goes through difficult times. You can't be too critical of people because of the way things happen. But the way you then do it, where he turns up at home and goes, oh, by the way, I'm leaving you, and the sun might be on because there's a big piece going to the paper about it tomorrow.
Nice.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Ladies,
You know,
kids.
I'll just go see the kids. Good night. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. You know, Gina's in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's grim.
yeah.
It really
so-
is.
That is grim.
It really
He
is.
will remain a plank, I think, for a very long
I
time.
think he will, because
There's
people
no
don't really
comeback
forgive
from
that. And also, she was then having to put up with all the paparazzi outside the house.
Yeah.
You know, and people blamed the press for that. But in
Yeah.
fact, you know, that was his fault, not theirs.
Yeah.
You know, so Matt Hancock for
Although
me.
there's a great, there was that cringe video. Do you remember the other day with him and the girls on the tube who nicked his hat? Did you not see that? Oh, it's just cringe.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that. No.
You've not seen that?
No.
So you got basically it was a whole bunch of girls who obviously were out in the town on the whatever, and
Proverbial.
and he had a baseball cap or something, and they grabbed it off his head, and they're filming it on their phones.
Of course, he had a baseball cap. What's he doing wearing a baseball cap?
What's he doing on the tube?
Probably trying to hide himself from all the other,
Well, just put a mask
women
on.
that want to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you just put a mask on. I mean, that's when a mask is quite handy when you're trying to hide from people, wouldn't you think?
Oh, poor Matt. I don't think he's having any sort of comeback
Really, poor
whatsoever.
Matt?
No.
Really?
No, well,
Really?
just his hope. He seems to be a very positive optimist if he thinks he's going to do a comeback tour.
I think
for
the
people
problem
who
is a lot of
listen.
these politicians are such psychopaths, and I don't mean that with a capital P. I mean they are genuinely narcissists. They think they're
Sociopathic.
so much
very
more
much so.
important than they actually are, and they're just, you know, they don't get it.
No.
I mean, why is it that every prime minister in the end has to be dragged kicking and screaming out of Downing Street?
Yeah.
They none of them want to leave.
Yeah.
You know?
Theresa May did a pretty quick job there, didn't she?
Well, I
I think
bet
she
no,
kind
but
of
She ran for the
succumbed
hills,
after.
or the fields
she
of
did
wheat,
run.
I don't
yes.
know.
yeah, but
she
she
ran for
literally
something.
had nowhere else to go. But I don't
Yeah.
think she was happy about it.
Well,
You know?
yeah.
She's sitting behind Boris in the Parliament.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't she just now? Isn't she
She's
just?
got a very strange collection of masks as well, hasn't she? Have
Oh
you
gosh,
noticed?
is it as bad as her shoe
Yes,
collection?
it is. It's all terribly sort of, you know, looks like sort of Hermes high-end kind of, you know, silk.
Well,
You
at
kind of
least
go,
she's not
it's a
trying for a
mask.
comeback.
It's a mask, full stop.
You know, get over yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, who's your second one, Will?
So my second one is Driffield.
Yes.
If I pronounce that correctly.
Yes.
Have I pronounced that
Yes,
correctly? Which is up
Driffield
in
in
Yorkshire.
Oh, Yorkshire,
And,
another hit for Yorkshire.
What's happening to the north?
I know.
I know, we blame you.
It's gone all soft.
So anyway,
What happened to
anywhere
Whippets?
north of Watford, I start getting foggy. So Driffield, and this is quite a great story, but again, this horrible pervading wokeness has kicked in, where they decided to do a mural to basically thank the NHS and the healthcare
course they
community,
did, yeah.
obviously, to help everybody. And it was really offensive. A very, very
Yes,
offensive
I saw
mural.
how offensive that was.
Did you see
yeah.
the picture?
I was personally offended by that.
It was
know.
disgusting
Yeah.
because it had
Shocking.
no person of colour in
Right.
it, and it didn't have anybody with a disability in
No.
it.
And
Whereas
they were all white, weren't they?
they were all white, which, you know, was pretty
Disgusting.
much, which was pretty horrible.
Shocking.
Especially when you bear in mind that apparently the demographic is 98.7% white that live in Driffield.
Yes.
So it wasn't very representative
And it's
of
not
the
a very
community.
big place, is it?
No, it's
So
pretty
when you say
tiny.
that, you know, 1 or 2% of people might not be white,
Yeah.
you're actually talking about probably 1 or 2 people.
And doing a little bit of side digging on it since I heard about it, I noticed that apparently the vast majority of complaints came from people outside of Driffield. So it's not even people in Driffield. It's like, hang on, here's a bandwagon,
And, any
choo
of them,
choo.
and also,
jump
none
on
of them had actually been there either.
No.
It's not
I
even
think
that
many
they,
people didn't know where it was.
No.
I think people are being so indoctrinated now to think white majority is bad. Just whiteness is
Yeah.
bad, and white people are just bad and too much white. Ah, my eyes, my eyes.
Yeah.
And the problem is,
Well, what
Phoebe
was that?
from
Was
Friends,
it
by
was
the
an
way.
NHS thing, wasn't there,
yeah.
this week about how white people should be.
Dear white people.
Yeah, dear
I
white
do it
people. You
American.
should be what was the word? Uneasy.
You should
Really?
be uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. That's
Why?
right. Well, because you're white.
And it's
Oh, okay.
whiteness means you're less empathetic and you don't know about your
You can't know
microaggression.
anything. No, you
for
can't
God's
know
sake.
anything.
If it was
because
about
you-
racism, that would have said, "Dear racist, stop being freaking racist, or you're going to get sacked." Boom!
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah,
would be like,
there you
"I
go.
dig
I
that
get it.
letter."
Yeah, all for
Instead,
that.
it was, "No, it's white people, those evil creatures
Yeah.
with the milk
Hang on, but
skin."
isn't that racist?
It's totally racist, but this is what's happening. This is infiltrating the towns all across England that are majority white, as
Yeah.
African countries are majority black and China's majority Chinese. They never get any
Yeah.
grief because it's bad being white. This is the message from the woke towns, the cities, London, to these poor Yorkshire towns.
From all these middle
that anything
class,
mostly white is
university
bad.
educated, so-called academic types,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, the thing
because
is
nobody
that
working class cares actually.
No.
because they haven't got time to think about it.
Nobody's
Yeah.
got time, and that's the thing. It's these people who actually find the time. I mean, Twitter has just become so toxic now.
I know.
I mean, it really is. I just don't. I kind of don't really go on it anymore. I mean, unless I'm looking at
I
news
still
or
do it just
feeds.
because I use it for news, but also I promote the show and all of that. But if I didn't do what I do, I don't think I'd have a Twitter account.
I mean, it's miserable. It really is
and how are you
miserable on
supposed
there.
to represent absolutely everyone in a community all the time? Then you have to do gingers and people with leg disabilities,
No,
deaf
gingers.
people. Yeah, always. But the irony
We like
is,
gingers.
you know, even like I hate saying as a woman, but when I think about white countries, I feel so much safer as a woman. White Western countries have better human rights on the whole. I think they treat women better, and this is never applauded anymore. I don't really particularly want to go to the countries that a lot of people have escaped from to come to our values. Because there's something fantastic and wonderful about liberal democracies in Europe, and we keep berating it. We keep saying, no, it's bad being white. White men are bad. No, it's got to stop.
It really has.
Everyone's
right.
beautiful, whatever colour you are.
Yes, and the end result of this is what? Did they have to take it down, the mural?
So yes, there's a petition to take it down. I don't know whether they've taken it down yet, but I think inevitably it's probably going to be a little bit photoshopped. I think there'll be a few...
That would be ridiculous if they do that.
Which just is succumbing to, again, this wokeness, which really just ticks me off, because where does it stop? And Belinda, your points are absolutely on the nail in terms of this is just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And where does it end?
Well,
where
although I'm hoping that it's not going to get worse and worse. That in
Yeah.
fact, the whole kind of business of what happened with Piers Morgan at the end of last week will have some
but so many
resonance.
people who dissected Piers Morgan or the Ofcom sort of result on that and said, well, you know, it wasn't completely sort of exonerating Piers. It was
Well,
sort
it
of,
exonerated his right to say what he said.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's the point.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they don't have to agree with what
No,
he
but
said.
many
That
people
wouldn't
were
be.
tearing
But
apart
that's the
saying it
trouble
wasn't.
because
Yeah.
they go, oh yeah, but they didn't like what he said.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's not the point. The
Yeah.
point is not whether you like it or not. The point is
Exactly.
whether he can say it.
Exactly.
And the ruling was yes, he can say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even 2 weeks ago, you had a Tory MP berating a group of young Tories for sitting around a table and all being male. I mean, this was a Tory
What?
MP going, "Oh, I see there are no women represented in the," and I'm like, "What? Who are you talking for?
No, no.
I don't know any women that mind seeing a load of boys or men or whatever doing anything.
I know.
It's turning people against each other, and unfortunately, as soon as it affects the Conservative Party,
Yeah.
which it has, we're done for
Yeah.
because it's either that or Labour.
Yeah.
And it's not
I
a
know.
choice.
I know. It's not good. Who's your second plank?
My second plank is a much beloved author of mine,
Oh,
but
yes.
she's getting it this
Right.
week. Hilary Mantel.
Ah, yes.
She's the author of Wolf Hall, and
Yeah.
she writes beautifully about the historic times
Yes.
of this country. She knows her eggs. She knows how wonderful this country is. Well, she's come out in an Italian newspaper, strangely, saying how she is so ashamed of her country now, and she wants to leave England and move to Ireland to become European. Which really is a bit ridiculous, unless she didn't have any geography classes when she was at school. UK is in Europe.
It's still European.
We are
Yes.
European.
Yeah.
And to compare the vast continent, the beautiful cultures and colours and history of Europe to a grey, bland office in Brussels full of nitwits from 27 countries is an insult to Europe.
It really is.
But that's not why she's a plank. She's a plank for doing the whole I'm ashamed of
Yes.
being
But
from
why is she
Britain
It's
again.
ashamed
so-
of Britain?
So
though?
this is what gets my goat. She doesn't like Boris, and she is
Who does?
really offended by the way the Brits have responded to all the boats coming across, the migrant
yes.
boats.
Yes.
And it's often people from ivory towers,
Yes.
very wealthy people who encourage mass migration and illegal immigration, because it doesn't impact them
No,
at all.
of course it doesn't.
So they
Yeah.
get virtue points for saying, oh, and they were just, the concern they have over the boats has just made me so ashamed to be British and all this sort of thing.
She might
But
want to ask the Italians what they think of all
Well,
the boats that
exactly.
land on,
So I thought you were
on the,
writing
on
in
the southern
Italian.
shores of Sicily.
You're
They're not
writing
too
in
keen,
Italian.
actually.
The Italians must be reading this going, what? Have you seen
Yeah.
Italy, the migrant crisis?
Did you see there was a boat?
2002?
There was a boat last weekend, I think it was. 500 people on. You know,
Yeah.
never mind the dinghy. This
Yes.
was like a container ship,
Yeah.
practically. 500 migrants coming from the north
Well,
coast of
Oh,
Oh,
Libya.
yeah,
It's
and also
1,000
Greek
yesterday.
islands as well. And the Greek
No, but
islands
these
as
are
well.
500
Yeah.
on one boat.
And what's crazy, and Italy
You know,
has had so
brilliant.
much of a hard time, but she's doing what Emma Thompson did
Yes.
during Brexit. You know, the horrors of the grey.
Why are so many of these
cake-filled,
authors like
miserable
this,
island.
with this ludicrous kind of, you know, it's like that bloke that does
No.
his dark materials as well.
Oh, yes,
You know,
Hatchet.
Pullman.
Yeah,
Philip
Philip Pullman.
Who,
He's
they've got
another
this kind of derangement, and some of the tweets they put out are loathsome
They
tweets.
loathe their
they
fellow
hate
Brits.
Britain, right?
Yeah.
And yet he's made most of his money here. She's probably an international success.
No, she's
but,
made her
but she's
success
made
here.
most of her money here. She's also been given a Dame
Yeah.
title because
hates
of what
the
she
royal
did
family.
here. Is she going to give that up before
I
she
know.
goes to Ireland?
It's the
Or is she going to keep it to get into
hypocrisy.
restaurants?
And the other thing that I'm annoyed at is all these threats. Jamie Oliver did it over Brexit. If the country votes Brexit, I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
Sadly,
and they're
like
please.
Lily Allen. She
Yeah.
said that as well,
another
didn't she?
Lily
Yeah.
Allen, and
Yeah.
then you have Snoop Dogg and Miley Cyrus claiming they're going to leave the country if Trump. None of them leave.
No.
None
No.
of them leave. It's all tantrum and tiaras because if you love your country, I'm speaking personally here. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
You love it for every other reason bar its politics.
Yeah.
Yes.
But these tantruming little lovies are like, I only like my country if who I vote for gets into power.
Yes.
And if they don't, I'm leaving.
Right.
But I'm
I
sure
mean-
you're both very disappointed, as I am, that the celebrities, and particularly Hollywood, hasn't got together to do a nice song for Afghanistan.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where's
No.
Camilla,
Yeah.
whatever, Harris?
Kamala's gone very quiet.
She's
Yeah.
gone
She's
very
lost her
quiet about
voice.
the Afghan women
She's
now.
getting ready to step
Oh, yeah.
into
Yeah, well, we're just waiting for
Sleepy
him
Joe's
to fall
shoes.
down the
Sleepy Joe-
stairs again, and
Yeah.
that'll be the end of him.
fall up the stairs.
Listen, people can live where they like, say what they like. I really like her actually, but to say she wants to leave the country because she's ashamed of her fellow Brit goes around so many people of the same ilk, wealthy, successful, made their money in this country, and now sneer at the very
And
people.
she might also find something which is I've noticed occasionally, and friends of mine have noticed when they've been working in the Republic of Ireland, is that they're not that keen on the English there in parts of Dublin. So good luck with that, because she might find that she has to come back to England because people aren't very welcoming.
Yeah, and people who think Ireland's nose is in the sort of underpants of the EU
Yeah.
are wrong.
They're really not.
voted
Yeah.
no
No,
twice.
it's not.
They don't want EU
No.
integration. They saw it as a chance to have a go at the English
Yeah.
Brexit, but really they're not massive pro-EU fans.
They're
so-
actually very nationalistic and
Yeah.
very proud of Ireland.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know,
So she's going to have the shock
so
of her
she'll
life
have,
when
you know,
they could well leave in the next
Yeah, but there are
decade
some
or
very
so.
good tax advantages there.
That's another good reason to go and live
That's
there.
the key thing.
Especially if you're an
Tax
artist.
advantages.
Yeah, but you know what, the
It's either
EU are trying to
Monaco
stop that.
or it's there. I know they're
Yeah,
trying
the
to, but I don't think they're going to have much luck.
The EU are trying to stop the tax little
Yeah.
haven that
Oh,
Ireland's
it's a good
creating.
haven
They'll
there.
be-
Yeah.
they're-
And it's slightly nicer than the Channel Islands.
Yes,
but there you go.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, that kind of talk against your fellow Brit is
It's not
okay.
good. It's not good. I'm going to stick with Conservative ministers on this, even though Matt Hancock isn't one anymore. I'm going to go with Nadhim Zahawi, who is the
yeah.
vaccines minister, who managed to appear on 2 different interviews on Sunday. And there's all sorts of reasons why he's a plank, not least because in January and on several other occasions, he assured everybody that there would be no vaccine passports, that they would not be handed out because they were not the sort of thing that this government does. Not the sort of thing that we want, not the sort of thing that we would ever push on people. And apparently next week or the week after, whenever it is they get around to it, we're going to have vaccine passports, despite the fact that people are going to football matches, cricket matches, nightclubs. I mean, even Michael Gove's been to a nightclub where they didn't ask him.
That was horrible.
It wasn't
You
great.
can't unsee that, can you?
You really can't.
I quite liked it.
I thought for somebody like him to do that is probably not going to do him any harm. But then other people pointed out, yeah, but he's the same guy who wants to stop
That's
everybody
the
else
point.
from
Exactly.
doing it.
Hypocrisy.
And that's the
Exactly.
hypocrisy
It's the
part.
hypocrisy.
I mean, he's the last person I would have expected to see in a nightclub in Aberdeen. I mean, I must
Well,
admit.
certainly in his suit.
Certainly in his suit. Very odd behaviour altogether. But, you know,
Yeah.
the less we say about that, the better.
But I don't understand the point of passports anyway. If you can
Well, they don't work,
carry
do they?
and pass on pass on COVID when you've been double jabbed.
Well,
I don't-
exactly. I mean, that's
don't
the
get
problem.
it.
The problem is that you can still pass it on. You can still get it.
Yeah.
And so the place that you're in isn't any safer because you've
Yeah.
shown them some kind of piece of
Exactly.
material. But what might be the case is that it becomes a more dangerous place because people who are being checked for their vaccine passport might not be being checked for anything else. And you
Yeah.
know a bit about
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
You know, people can bring drugs in.
Exactly.
They can bring knives in.
Yeah.
But you can't come in unless you've been vaccinated.
No, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
No,
So, I mean,
nuts.
also people know so many different ways of getting around things. I was
Yeah.
told by somebody
Yeah.
that they had someone who had to go and show proof of double vaccination. They just took
Yeah.
their sister's card
Yeah.
You
and
can
showed
get your
that.
mate's phone. You can do.
Yeah.
you
Oh,
can
there
do
are all
anything.
sorts of workarounds.
And you
There
can
always
get, I
are.
mean, I know
Yeah.
for a fact there's an app that you can get which looks like you've got a vaccine passport.
Oh, really?
But it's
Yeah.
a fake app.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy checking on the door is not going to be some kind of,
No.
you know, investigator, is he? He's just
Exactly.
going to be a bouncer.
It's not going to QR code it.
No, and if you're at Wembley with 85,000 people like they were last Sunday, how are you going to stop them?
The
Most of
public
the
just
lads
want
there are
common
going to be
sense.
on £7 an hour. They're
Yeah.
going to just do the basics, aren't
Yeah.
they?
I genuinely think the public just want common sense policies, and at the moment, like, you know, a few months ago, children, no, they won't have the vaccine, this vaccine is not for children, and now it's, vaccines
Right.
must be given to children.
Well, that's the other
Passport
reason.
thing.
That's the other reason he's a plank, because he was
Yeah.
on with Tom Newton Dunn on Times Radio on Sunday, and he was asked the very same question. You know, are children of the age of 12 able to get a vaccination without their parents' consent?
Yeah.
And he said, no, absolutely no way that's going to happen, because obviously that would be wrong. And then he goes on Sky and says the complete opposite.
It's
and
actually just an attack on the
there
family.
are there are circumstances whereby they could if they were fully informed. You go with, how can you be fully informed?
do that.
You can't be fully informed by something you don't know everything about.
Exactly, and there's
You
not
don't
enough
know.
data.
There's not enough data.
No.
So if I ask, Nadhim Zahawi, what effect will this vaccine have on my 14-year-old son in 10 years' time? He can't tell me.
No.
Yeah,
So
no.
therefore, that's not full consent.
Why is a
is it?
parent going to take the risk?
I've been
I
getting
get it.
letters.
I get
I've
it.
got a letter from school for my 16-year-old saying we urge parents to get their children vaccinated because they don't want to miss out on education. So people aren't getting vaccinated anymore for health reasons.
No.
It's now educational
Right. Or
reasons or
travel.
political
Right.
reasons. This has never happened
Yeah.
before.
No.
This is a real breach of trust. I give my children every vaccine under the sun if there is proof it is in their best health interest.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen no proof.
It's fair enough.
And yet I'm supposed to be a bad granny killing, whatever mum for not letting their children have vaccines.
And also
Then he
this
comes
other
out
myth,
saying,
that they perpetrate, which is that we have to get everybody vaccinated so that school is not disrupted.
Yeah.
The only reason school's disrupted is because you've disrupted it.
and you
Yeah.
let the
Nobody else
unions
has.
close them all the time.
It's
So
the government that shut the schools. It's
Yeah.
nothing to do with COVID.
No, I'm not sticking a vaccine in my child's
me
arm
neither. No,
arm
thank you.
to help the unions.
No,
or
I'm not.
fricking the government. It's got to be for health reasons.
Exactly.
It's a bit crazy.
And it really is mad. So
And
it's
it
gotta be
erodes
proven.
trust as well, because I want to believe, I want to help. I don't want COVID around, but it's making me think I don't trust you anymore.
No.
If this is a load of baloney.
The whole thing is completely hypocritical.
Well, they've told us
hypocritical.
that-
I mean, it's just continually about face all the time, everything that we've had. And the problem is I think fundamentally, even though I've had both my vaccines, I'm quite happy to have taken them. The fact is we don't have that long-standing data. That as a
they're
parent,
already telling
I don't
us.
have kids.
They're
but I
already
mean,
telling you it's a waste of time because you
Yeah.
need to get another one now.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, God,
and then in January you'll need to get another one.
Get another
And then-
booster.
and
I'm not
then
sure I can be
You've
bothered,
been doing this for
to
the
be
rest of
honest.
time.
Yeah.
I know.
No thanks.
gotta
Exactly.
Get lost.
Yeah.
Will, use your third.
Who is my third? My third is. I'm trying to remember who my third is.
Is it the civil service?
The civil service.
my
Yeah, there you go.
'Cause I was gonna do that.
Whenever I could get a dig in at the
Yes.
civil service, it is always worth always worth a punt. So the civil service, who are probably in the most secure employment ever, and I mean, especially after lockdown and pandemics and everything else, this is a time obviously where most people have been at a most volatile and fragile time in their professional careers. The civil service have ordained, that I understand, being slightly more voluntary about whether people wish to return to work. Now, I know a lot of companies that have been kind of fairly relaxed about it and said, if you want to return to work, that's fine. If you don't want to return to work, it's fine. But the civil service, I believe the figure, Mike, if I've got it right, is something like 8 out of 10 don't want to go back to work.
I think it's only 1 out of 10 that have gone back.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. There
Compared
you go. 9 out of 10
to
who
an
don't.
awfully much bigger number of, I think it's 60 or 70%
Yeah.
of people who have now gone back in private companies to work.
Yeah.
In the office, but not the civil service.
No, and the problem is I see exactly happening here as you see in the States with the federal agencies. And the federal agencies have everybody over a barrel. And there's been a few cases, you'll know this, Mike, from your time in the States, where the federal agencies have basically worked to rule and said, OK, we're not going to do this because of this or whatever. And I think the same is going to start happening with the civil service over here. And these people turning around and saying, no, we're not going to return to work because we don't have to and we're not obligated to.
And they'll probably know all their human rights and,
Oh,
and the
yes.
latest with their woke entitlement. I mean, the civil
Absolutely.
servants, I have to say, especially during the Brexit years, they feel like they're not for the people. They don't reflect the
No,
electorate.
I don't think
they're
so
a
at all.
cushy little privileged lot
Yeah.
of people,
It's
young
a little autonomy. Yeah.
students from the unions that have told, they've been told what their rights are. In fact, Priti Patel, one of her main problems is that her team won't help her with the border issue.
Yeah.
Because they're, too woke and too pro
Can you
immigration.
imagine? And the problem is,
Who are these
unlike a
people?
normal company where you could just say, right, well, out,
Right.
or work a way to
Yeah.
get them out, you're stuck with that person for life.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
look
if
at the
they're
woman
not
who's just
returning to the
leaving. I
office-
mean, I know it's not technically the civil service. The BBC comes under the same bracket
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
And the woman who's leaving as head of news and current affairs, she's worked at the BBC for 40 years, right? She's only ever worked at the BBC in a variety of different roles, so I'm sure that makes her very experienced and very good for the BBC. But, what kind of perspective do you have on life if that's all you've ever done?
And where's she
Worked
going?
for one
She retiring?
company? I think she's retiring.
Not
Well, presumably
surprised.
she's going to end up at the Guardian.
Oh,
or
she's
something,
going to have the best pension ever.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
probably the best pensions, the pension plans that I think are available are of those that have worked within the civil service,
Yes.
from what I
It's
understand.
one giant echo chamber as well.
Yeah,
so once
big
you're
time.
in, you're only going to have your kind of woke lefty views entrenched even more.
Yeah.
But, it never used to be like that, did it? Because, we saw this, again, we mentioned Priti Patel earlier, that case where, she got rid of that guy who was the head of the Home Office, and he then sued them and won about, I think 200,000 quid off them. It didn't used to be the case that the civil service was actually woke and or kind of full of Ramonas and or full of people with a particular political bent. It's now full of these kind of, Apple Mac laptop types, who live in Richmond, who commute on the train, who now work from home,
no,
cycle
want to work
at the weekends.
From their garden with a glass of rosé.
Yeah, with a glass of rosé if they
and
can.
a copy of the Guardian.
And a copy of the Guardian.
A copy of the Guardian.
It's not fair.
It's now become a politicised unit, hasn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's the arm of the Labour and
it was the one thing I wanted
basically.
Dominic Cummings to be successful with, which was another thing that he was not successful with, unfortunately.
Was completely reforming the civil service. I'm annoyed he failed at that, but he had no one really supporting it.
I think
there's the political appetite.
I think it's an impossible organisation to break. You can't. They're all so entrenched, as you say. Absolutely.
There's no way. It's permanent, so I don't know what's to be done.
But this is the thing, isn't it? That these institutions were built. And when they were originally built, they probably weren't meant to be the way they are now. But now that they are like that, you can't change them.
But same with the police, same with the schools, with the NHS. It's all political now.
Yeah. So what's your third one, Belinda?
My third plank includes probably thousands and thousands of people. It's basically the managers at the NHS Trust that misuse, waste, mismanage the taxpayers' money.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and they need called out. And it's always the public purse that has to keep raising funds for the NHS, and no one is directly even creating a cross-party group to tackle how much waste there is in the NHS. In fact, in 2018, I think it was Lord Saatchi that wrote an article when Theresa May came out going 20 billion more for the NHS in 2018, and he wrote this great article saying, hang on a minute, if we don't combine that with actually cutting all the horrific waste, we're going to be raising taxes in a few years. And lo and behold, 2021, here we are. But the tax waste is incredible.
It really is.
It's for example, £1 billion is wasted just in the last 3 years of missed appointments because no one wants to charge anyone for constantly missing their appointments because everyone wants to mollycoddle everyone and pretend no one has any responsibility.
Not fair because some people can't afford it.
Listen, of course there's a group where they have reasonable excuses for missing their appointments, but the vast majority are just like, well, it's the NHS, it's not my money, blah, 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 and they miss them and miss them. This is £1 billion. The other things that the NHS trusts do is they don't shop around for good value. Right. So they've been caught spending £2,000 on a moisturising cream that you can buy for £2 in the shop.
They give stuff away for free as prescription medicine when it's actually things that you could buy.
So so an example of that is if you are gluten intolerant, the NHS are prescribing foods you can get at your local Sainsbury's. For 1/100 of the price. Right. You've got things like loo rolls. This was, I think it was Salford, I've got that, I can't remember, it's Sunderland, NHS Foundation Trust, were found spending 10 times the amount of loo rolls that most normal households do because they just can't be bothered to shop around. They buy the most expensive of everything because when it's not your money, you can be really flippant and generous with it.
Of course.
And so we've
wouldn't you think if you're the biggest purchaser of medicine in the country, that you could basically say to whoever's making it, this is how much we're going to pay you. Like supermarkets do with the dairy farms. They go, here's what we'll pay you for the milk. It's not the farmers who go, no, you're going to pay us 100 quid a pint. Which is what the NHS does.
But no one's doing anything about it. It's almost as if to say that the NHS is some kind of deity that you cannot criticise. I think denying that the NHS needs reform is immoral. I think it's for everyone, and patients need to turn up to their appointments or give notice. People need to return. For example, wheelchairs and crutches are costing the NHS 18 million a year by not being returned.
Crazy.
So we've got to start taking this seriously. It's not a free-for-all. And while now Boris is raising taxes, to see so much waste not being addressed, I'm sorry, but those people in the NHS need to be called out for their plankery and wasting taxpayers' money.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well done. Now we need to speed this up a bit, so I'm going to rush through my last one. My last one's got a bit of a sporting bent to it, and it's the Brazilian police. Ooh. The Brazilian police this week did an amazing thing. They walked and sent officials onto a football match between Brazil and Argentina, which included people like Lionel Messi was playing, Neymar was playing, and they arrested basically 4 players who had come in to play in the game because they'd apparently breached quarantine rules, right? Now, they were from Aston Villa, the goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez, Tottenham's Cristian Romero and Giovanni Lo Celso, and also somebody from Sao Paulo as well. Apparently, they claimed to have flown in via Venezuela, and they shouldn't have then, because they came from Britain, they shouldn't have entered the country without either quarantining or they shouldn't have been allowed in at all. But so they were all left standing. It was 10 minutes into the game.
Brilliant.
They basically just walked onto the pitch. It was a sort of melee, and nobody knew what was going on. And they were all sort of asking themselves, what do we do now? You've taken these 4 players off. And they basically just suspended the game, and that was the end of it. And you're going, that's possibly one of the strangest things that's ever happened during this whole COVID madness.
But what happened to the management, the team management?
Well, I think the point is that people, I suppose, like most people, eventually just go, just put that down, it's fine.
Oh my
God. All right. And international football is quite difficult. I mean, there was another game the other day that was abandoned somewhere in the Pacific because there's been a military coup. And somebody turned up to play a football match, and the place is like in the middle of a civil war.
Brilliant.
So they had to go, back on the bus.
Sounds like my job.
I suppose you haven't been called out there. It's not Mali, but it's somewhere like that.
Isn't it Guinea?
It might be Guinea, yes, I think it is Guinea,
Oh, yeah.
Very well done.
Guinea's a little volatile.
She's on top of the football in Guinea. Football in Guinea. Anyway, it's right. If you've got a game in Guinea this weekend, don't bother going because there's a bit of a military problem there.
I
love that, though.
COVID derangement syndrome.
But also, isn't it typical that we've got, in the midst of all of this kind of world madness that's going on, including Afghanistan, you've got these people still thinking they can just play football.
I love it.
It's an international football competition, but nobody's allowed to go anywhere. And you're going...
Brilliant.
You'll have the Taliban doing it soon.
Well, I mean, presumably the Taliban will be at the World Cup because they go to Qatar all the time. That's where their mates are. I mean,
exactly.
As if you
they got an officer.
Yeah. You'll have the UN saying, we welcome the Taliban football team, the new, polished Taliban who we now love.
You get those guys that were pictured in the bumper cars, remember?
Yes.
Who then later set fire to the bumper car place.
Oh, did they set fire to it? I love it. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Oh my
That's fantastic.
God,
all right.
So they had a few goes and then
just
torture. Brilliant.
So we've got 9. I'm going to add, because we always carry one over from last week, Harry and Meghan, obviously, this week because they've now reached the lowest ebb ever of their popularity. There's a new poll out, I think today, which says that they are now more disliked than they've ever been.
Everywhere in the world?
Just here.
Oh, really?
Really?
I imagine
I think the Americans are
some of the Americans, I think, are going to probably start disliking them as well. And they didn't get invited to Obama's 60th party.
Oh, so they not?
You have to wonder about how popular she is with that lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, we are under the pressure. Of, so why don't you, Will, tell Belinda what your 3 are?
Okay, so my 3 was Sadiq.
Yes.
Obviously with the rehousing of Afghani refugees, in preference to veterans. My second one was Difffield. In terms of the lovely diversity mural. And my third one, which I keep forgetting, was civil service.
It's so... okay, that's really hard because civil service for me wins, and I don't think the civil service has been a plank. Have they been a plank?
I don't think they have. No.
The other 2 are really funny and I love, but the civil service freaking deserves that plank.
I think so.
All right, put them in.
Okay, you give me your 3, and I'll pick yours.
So I've got Hilary Mantel, the author who's ashamed of Britain.
That is good.
And we've got all the people that waste taxpayers' money in the NHS. And who is my other one?
I think it's Sheffield City Trust.
Sheffield City Trust. For banning Roy Chubby Brown and being puritanical, anti-human.
I think it's got to be Dame Hilary Mantel, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute, there's nothing like a dame, I think you could say. And I don't mean that in a nice way.
Yeah, Hilary gets it.
All right, so my 3. It is, of course, where are we? Nadhim Zahawi. Matt Hancock. And the Brazilian police.
Oh, tough call. Nadim.
I think it's got to be him.
I think so. It's got to be him.
He's very much of the moment.
Yeah, he's just like daily planking.
So that means we have a final of Nadhim Zahawi,
huge planker,
Dame Hilary Mantel, and the civil service.
Yeah.
That's quite good.
That is good, actually. Yeah. I like that. And quite new and fresh.
It is.
New
fresh list.
It's a very fresh show, this, You've been well behaved as well this time around.
I haven't said vagina once.
No, now you have. Filthy. Normally she's filthy on this show.
There were no
well, Gwyneth Paltrow,
your work is done.
Right, next time.
Okay, all right. So what do you think?
I think.
I think there's Nadhim
Nadhim.
Zahawi. There's got to be,
Yeah,
isn't he,
I
number
think
one?
so.
Yeah.
Number one plank, and then give it to the Dame second.
Dame
Yes.
second.
Dame second, civil
Civil
service
service
third.
Yeah.
And I think I might do the NHS wastrels as number
Yeah,
4.
and that's what I should call the planks. NHS wastrels.
Wastrels.
All
I'm
of
amazed
you.
Serco didn't come up.
Well, listen, make things
Yeah.
next week. They've only
Yeah.
just got a new contract, haven't
That's
they?
it.
Well.
But they've already spent 35 billion or something?
Something like that.
On a failed.
But it's not their
testing
money.
program.
You know, that's the other great thing.
Yeah.
Set up a company, get a government contract,
Yeah.
ship in all the money,
Excellent.
and shove it all into the bank over there.
35 bill.
It's great.
35.
Tremendous.
It's ridiculous.
Mental.
So, Nadhim Zahawi, the Minister for Vaccines, doesn't seem to know whether he wants to give them to children or not. You are Plank of the Week. Thank you to Belinda. Thank you to Will. We'll see you next time.